big news. We just hit 69 subscribers on the channel, and I'm considering ending my career on a high point. But I believe we can go even further. I'm talking 420 subscribers, 6,900 subscribers, 42,069 subscribers. If you want to bring both your D&D knowledge and this channel to new heights, make sure to subscribe. It really means the world to me every time I see someone subscribe or comment on a video. You didn't come here to hear me talking about the admittedly funny number of subs on the channel. You came here to learn about how to be a better player in the world's greatest role-playing game. It's worth noting that most of these will be coming from a DM perspective, as that's primarily what I do. Anyway, on to number 1. Make characters. Okay, I know that sounds stupid, don't click off, hear me out. Your character is more than just their skills. If you have a really cool character concept, but it basically just boils down to game mechanics and combat abilities, then that's not a character. That's just stats on a piece of paper. Try to write a living, breathing character. And if you aren't the most creative person, don't worry. Work with your DM to make a character that has areas to grow in, weaknesses, and a fleshed out personality. I get that character writing is hard, so if you could use some basic tips, I actually made another video on the topic. I'll put it here in the cards. One of the most interesting characters I've ever DM'd happened to be a human fighter, and one of the most boring is a tiefling warlock. A good player isn't just creative in min-maxing a perfect stat block, but is a great writer and storyteller in their own right, creating a lovable character that brings depth to a party. Number 2. Now that you have a well-written character with Fluke's personality and backstory, you should make sure to play that character. Wow, I'm on a roll. Subscribe for advice such as make a character and play D&D. Despite the visible stupidity of my choice of word layout, I'm serious in this one too. A great player is not thinking as themselves while playing the game, but instead is viewing the world through the eyes of their character. How would your character really react to this situation? Would they be scarred after killing a bandit? Or would they criticize those bandits for picking a fight while being so weak? Part of this is encompassed in looking for role-playing moments and capitalizing on them. For instance, if the DM says the party enters a bar, do something. Ask how the business is going, eye up the patrons, get a drink, approach the musician in the corner, or mess with the chairs. Literally do anything. This adds life to the world and prevents your DM from experiencing fatigue from carrying a story for hours on end. If your DM says, you leave the gates of the city, and stops, have a conversation in character, and describe where you're going or what you're going to do. Don't wait for initiative to be rolled to play the game. Maybe this is my DM nature shining out, but I love serious games of D&D. Not lack of humor or fun, of course, that's like the point of the game, but games in which you can explore the complexities of a character through great roleplay and character conflict. Those are the campaigns that really are fun for me. And I'm sure I'm not alone in that. I mean, that's what made Critical Role so popular, right? It was the tremendous characters and consistent roleplay that immersed not only the players, but the audience in the world of Wildmount. Don't get me wrong, Matt Mercer is great, but he alone could not make a session engaging. A lot of that falls to the players. Number 3. On a less serious writing roleplay note, is this simple tip. Please, pay attention during combat. I'm sure you've heard this everywhere, but Dungeons & Dragons is notorious for being incredibly long and drawn out, especially in campaigns like mine with 8 to 12 player characters alone. One round of combat takes 20 minutes if everyone is fast, or up to over an hour if players aren't paying attention to the game. This applies doubly if you're a caster. Pay attention to the flow of combat and have a spell ready before your turn starts. I'll say that again. Have your move planned before your turn. This applies doubly for casters. If a caster is not paying attention, it can slow down the game for everyone. The DM will have to explain the situation and board layout, the player has to sift through their entire spell list and choose a spell, likely they'll go through the process of casting the spell, only to realize they had not read the spell in its entirety and decided that they want to do something else. This repeats the sifting through the spell list, choosing a spell, looking up the kind of saving throw, and by the end of the turn it's been 25 minutes and everyone else at the table has not only lost interest in the combat, but also stopped paying attention as well, making the problem even worse. Also, as a side note, keep in mind that you have 6 seconds on your turn, so no long-winded conversations, charisma characters. Paying attention is hard, man. I have ADHD, believe me, I get it. But your lack of attention shouldn't bog down the game for everyone else. Number 4. Don't cheat. I'm surprised I even have to say this, but just don't do it. It's really common. I can already hear someone typing, "But NGN, the DM fudges dice rolls all the time. It's only fair if I do it." No. The DM screen is there to correct for mistakes in balancing and to keep players from metagaming the skills of NPCs or enemies. If the DM used it to cheat, then that's a problem too.
But NGN, it's only really cheating if I get caught. It's the DM's job to catch me, and it's their fault if I cheat.
Stop it. No. Bad. Go to your room. If this is your mentality, please do not play D&D. This is not gatekeeping unless you consider asking basic human decency as gatekeeping. I just don't understand that argument at all. First, the DM is not a babysitter. They should be able to expect people to be honest without watching their every move. The second, failing is actually fun in D&D, and it's one of the few games where that's the case. Nat 1s are hilarious, and are a great part of D&D and D&D culture, as are ridiculous situations brought about by a series of unfortunate events. Cheating in the game adds a kind of tension to the room. A party with a cheater is always on edge, always anxious or mistrustful, monitoring the offender. If you are a good D&D player, you should know how to work with failure for an even better experience. Number 5 is kind of a balancing act. I admit that this is something I struggle with in nearly every game that I play, and that is knowing when to step down and give the spotlight to other characters. I really do hate to break it to you if you're watching this, but you're not the main character of your campaign. The entire party should play an equal role in the party dynamics and the story, and a great player knows when to step back and let the spotlight fall on other characters. If you find the urge for your character to be a part of every moment in the campaign, you're guilty of this. If you find yourself saying, "I would like to walk up to the conversation and say," or find some excuse to hear a conversation between other PCs on purpose of entering the conversation yourself, then you're guilty of this. A good way to quantify this is to play a game relatively normally and ask yourself how many conversations you're a part of. I have had players that try to be part of every single conversation in every single session. People who do this will find a way to cross the city just to be part of a conversation. Once again, this is a huge struggle with me as being a player. I love role-playing and being part of the action, so I tend to make myself the center of attention, when I really shouldn't. More often than not, this issue stems from being excited to play the game, and I appreciate everyone who is excited and the excitement of these players. They're often very good at roleplay and very fun to be around. That being said, hogging every character moment cheapens the experience for everyone else at the table, so a great player knows when to sit back and let the others play the game. And with that, you've actually made it to the end, meaning that you've got the Cool Guy Award. Congrats! If the video is good enough to keep your attention for the entire duration, please consider supporting the channel. I know the uploads have been a little less consistent recently, but after finals, my schedule should open up and you should see a lot more from this channel. Anyway, most importantly, more than anything, stay nerdy, and have a great day.